There's this thing that I have with the whole grandparent thing where I haven't had grandparents in close to about 5 years now. And I know I'm kind of a younger dude to not have grandparents, at least by my friends' standards, because most of my friends have grandparents in their 60s, maybe? Barely hitting 70s. But, I haven't had a grandparent in damn near 5 years now. And while I do miss them, I mean, this isn't going to be a callous kind of thing. But I want people with grandparents to shut the fuck up. Because they're not that special. Grandparents aren't that special. They're just older folks. Yes, sometimes they impair wisdom down or whatever it is. And most people end up saying the same thing whenever their grandparent dies. Like, oh, I should have listened to them. I wish we could have talked more, blah, 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 this and that. It's like, yeah. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. But there's also a lot of old people in the world to listen to. I grew up with my grandparents in Mexico. All of them. And due to familial reasons that I don't really want to get into because I don't care enough to. Like, it was a weird time growing up with... I basically only had one grandparent who was functional, in a sense. She could sort of talk and laugh and interact in a conversation. My other grandma was a complete stoic. She was the type of grandma that would sit there with, in her own little special chair in the corner, and she would... She's a tiny, frail-looking woman. Like, she was no bigger than, 5 feet at any given time in her life. Whenever I started meeting her and recognizing her, she was definitely about 5 feet, 4'9", 4'11", something like that. Like, she was a tiny woman. But she was also mean. And not, an overt, I'm gonna yell at you mean. Like, I come from a very passive-aggressive family. A very passive-aggressive family. We're close, but we're close so that we can learn enough about the other person to just talk as much shit as I can. Because if you come from a big family, there's always going to be gossip for the family. That's why I don't deal with other people's gossip. I deal with familial gossip. I walk in and I talk to my parents and my mom just starts giving me the rundown on everybody that I've met at any point. And then my dad always tells me, hey, you know who died this week? So-and-so. You met them once, but they're like your second cousin twice removed from a marriage sort of thing. But they met you once whenever you were 6. But yeah, they just died. Okay, cool. Thanks, Dad. That really helps my life out. And I know the grandparents thing to me is just kind of dumb. Because I see my parents be grandparents now. As I have a little nephew, and that's the only nephew that they're going to get. I mean, that's the only grandkid that they're going to get for a while. Because I'm definitely not going to have one anytime soon, hopefully. Knock on wood. But the biggest thing with the grandparents thing is, listen, you had your grandparent. You fucked up and you didn't talk to him. Oh well. Not talking to your grandparents is not that big of a deal. Because most of the time, most grandparents are pretty fucking boring. Like I said, my grandma, she sat, and I know some people are going to be telling me, well, my peepaw, he always takes us out fishing and this and that, and he always was very active and blah, blah, this and that. But it's like, okay, cool. I'm not talking about you then. I'm talking to the people who genuinely, I feel like people take their grandparents for granted, in a sense. And it's okay, because that's just what society does. We push our old people off to the side and hope to God that they just die peacefully and leave us a little bit of money whenever they go. But the thing is that growing up without grandparents was kind of liberating, in a sense. Because it just meant that I would listen to any old person. And I like talking to old people. I like talking to older people. I say old, but now at this point, it's more like they're just, they're 70, they're 60, whatever it might be. Whatever the case. I like talking to people that aren't my age, because that's when you learn more, at least, I think. And they're just more interesting and funnier, because they've had time to develop their stories and tell you it. I mean, I tell stories on here all the time, and for those of you guys who have been listening for a bit now, you'll know that sometimes my stories are very fluid, and sometimes they're not, because it's my first time saying these things. My ultimate ramblings on here are me just kind of formulating my own opinions and my own thoughts and my own potential anything. And it's funny because I've had a couple of people reach out to me and tell me, dude, I've been thinking the exact same thing. Holy crap. Like, somebody actually said it. And to me, that's pretty cool. But I don't do it so that other people can reach out. I do it because I'm literally just formulating my own thoughts and opinions. And if you want to come along for the ride, then bless your heart. But the thing with the older people is, like, they've already had a lifetime to develop their stories, their punchlines for their specific stories. And most people, I've met some funny older people. Like, hilarious. They can bring the fucking house down. People talk about the next big thing, the next young star, or whatever it is, but I miss older folks jumping into things like comedy or movies or whatever it might be. I miss that because old people can see it from a different perspective. And yes, I understand, like, there's Scorsese, there's David Finch. I mean, all of these guys who are already old now. And Tarantino's getting to that point where he's kind of an old director. But the thing with them is they started out young. I miss the people who jump into it at an old age because they can and want to, and it's been in them for so long. I want that. I like old people telling stories because they've already had a chance to kind of refine the fine small details and give you the best pieces of advice. You know, the thing with advice is the more someone talks about it, the more you probably shouldn't follow it. Like, I rant and rave about relationships and being single and being married and all of that stuff, but I talk about it a lot because I've never done it. I don't want to do it anytime soon. But exactly in my point of view is, like, a lot of people come to me for relationship advice, and I still give it to them. But they don't realize that I've never been in a really quote-unquote successful relationship. I don't care about a relationship enough to do that. So I think it's hilarious whenever people come to me and ask for relationship advice because I have no clue. And every time I've talked to an older person, or honestly, I like talking to strangers in general. If you were listening to my last episode, I basically went on a little bit of a rant of saying, is it kind of weird to talk to a Mormon girl who was at your door? But I actually thought about it and I just sent it. I did it. We went out. It was me and two sisters. They were fantastic to talk to, honestly. Like, I don't have an issue with the people who believe in Mormonism. I have an issue with the Mormon faith. And I asked them because I was curious, what separates you from, Christianity and Judaism? Because obviously you guys are following the same sort of basis of faith. And they started saying, our relationship with Jesus Christ and this and that. And I was like, that's cool. So where does yours branch off from the rest? Well, they said, it was about a couple of centuries after, about 500 AD. And I was like, And they say, it's because Jesus wanted his disciples and followers to move to a new place, so they came here. Say, so Jesus ended up in America? Oh, yeah. And they're like, okay, and specifically where? And they said, sort of Utah. It's like, all right, you lost me there. But, again, this is pretty cool because I've never actually sat down and had a conversation with them. I can read these things, and I've read about Mormonism, and I've read about Judaism and Hinduism and all of these isms, but like I've never seen them or interacted with a person who believes in them. And that's the cool thing about old people too, is because sometimes you've actually had shared experiences with someone who's old, whether you knew it or not. I mean, it's just the things that happen to every human: the heartbreak, the first kiss, the failed date, the old prom story that didn't go well, the I love my children and this is how I raise them sort of thing. And it's fun to talk to them. But I don't believe that it's necessary to get all of this information from grandparents, because a lot of people shut down and they stop talking to older people whenever their grandparent dies. And they just wait for their parents to get old and finally impart their wisdoms on there, and then as soon as they're gone, they say the same thing that happened whenever their grandparents died. They say, oh, well, my parents are gone, I have nothing to live for, I still have so much to ask you, and blah, 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 this and that. And it's like, okay, that's fair. But why didn't you? Why didn't you? And in my point of view, I went through COVID without grandparents. And I'm going to tell you that was a hell of a fucking release. Like, my last grandparent was in January 2020. The world shut down in March. My entire COVID, I heard stories, and I empathized with them, don't get me wrong. I understood, like, the plight of these stories of people saying, oh, I'm terrified that I'm gonna get vaccinated, because whatever your stance on vaccinations, I mean, we were all scared at one point. We all were. We can't deny it. There is, like, maybe 1% of the population, not in the U.S., that did not get scared. It's if you say that you didn't, you're kind of a liar, man. For a while, we all got scared. That first couple of months when everything was shutting down, the government had no clue what the fuck to do, because we had never really been through this before. That stuff just kind of, it came out of nowhere, and it surprised the hell out of everybody. And concerts were being canceled, and games were being canceled, and people's lives were completely put on halt. And then people started worrying because it was spreading, and it was contagious, and it was everywhere. And everyone kept thinking, oh, what about my loved ones, my family, my loved ones, my grandparents? And I sat there thinking, oh no, that's it. I just can't go to work. I can't go to a job that I already hated, and I was already looking for a new one. But, I mean, I got away with it without having to care about my grandparents. Because what's the worst that can happen? They're going to get put 12 feet under instead of 6? Nah, they're already gone. So, it was kind of liberating. And I know that whenever I say this, again, I sound callous, but that's just my tone of voice. I can't help it. I sound more serious than I am. But I think that that's hilarious, because I know my grandparents weren't going to be affected. And I empathize with the people that had grandparents that did, and I sympathize with those whose grandparents did die for COVID and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, you just kind of lost your grandparent. That's what it is. Be it a car accident or whatever it is, we're all going to go at some point. And the fun thing is that, you know, at least they went to a cool thing like a pandemic. Like, everyone says, oh, I want to die peacefully in my sleep. I said, yeah, I want to die in my sleep or something, but I don't know, something about getting to 90 years old and having to see everybody take care of you and everybody gather around to watch you, like, slowly fade into nothingness. That to me is terrifying. That is scary beyond measure. I don't want my loved ones to see me dying. If I see my loved ones dying, that's going to kill me twice. And I do want as long a life as I possibly can because I do like this life. But at the end of the day, we all go at some point. That's why the grandparent thing is such an interesting thing to me. It's not an issue. I don't have an issue with it. It's just different to something that I've seen, which is all right. I get it. Love your grandparents. Love your family. Hope that they can live as long as they can. But I hate the stupid fucking remarks of, oh, they were left too soon. Bro, she was 95. She lived a hell of a life. Are you really that insanely desperate to hold on to something? To hold on to another human being? Another living being? And tell them, dude, don't die. Remain in this decrepit, empty shell of a fucking person that you once were. Just remain in that state for another 5 to 10 years so that we can still continue our mundane routines of visiting you month after month after month at the nursing home that we plopped you in 10 to 15 years ago. That's so fucking selfish to me. Telling somebody not to die is an insult. But that's only if you mean it. Because I have the tendency to walk around and whenever people ask me, hey, how are you doing? I say, I'm not dead. I'm not dead yet. And people think that that's weird or that's just, oh, why are you looking so sad at the world? Or, oh man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's good. It's like, I'm aware that I'm going to die someday. I just don't want it to be yet. And yet is like the best case scenario that we could ever hope for. Yet is the word for hope. Oh, are you going to graduate college? Not yet. Have you gotten married? Not yet. Are you ever going to have any kids? Not yet. Are you ready to order, sir? Not yet. Yet is hope. Yet is the word that people use for hope. Or at least, I'm not going to say should, because in all honesty, I don't believe in telling people what to do. I don't like people telling me what to do in my life. You should do whatever the hell you want to do. And me even saying that sounds bad because I'm still using the word should. Do what you will, and that's it. But for me, yet is such a hopeful word because it's even the bare minimum of saying, hey man, have you become a professional? I mean, are you a professional? Not yet. It's beautiful to me. Have you become a father? Not yet. Have you lost all your grandparents? Not yet.